Welcome to Backroom Talk.
All right, guys. Well, welcome to another episode of Backroom Talk. I am Georgia here with Carl, and this is kind of a special episode. We have 3 guests that are joining us for this part 1 of a 2-part series, and six guests, 2 parts. We're good. We did some good math there.
1, 2, 6.
Or maths, as I would say.
Maths,
as Australians would say. But we have the Big Dawgs Coaches Summit. So all of the remote coaching staff are here in town with us for a little bit of bonding, a little bit of learning. We thought it was a good opportunity to have them on and share in some conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, these first 3, really looking forward to. We always have good conversations with the coaches that we bring in, and I think it's a nice little hit, right? I think after almost every one, we're like, oh, let's do another hour. Obviously, we couldn't do that with 6 coaches today, but yeah, great conversations, and this part 1 especially, I think, is going to be a good kickstarter to it, starting off with Henry.
Yeah, so we've got Henry Torano, we've got Sam Smith, and we've got Whitney Reese on part 1. So guys, enjoy the episode, and as always, please make sure leave us a review and like and subscribe. All right. So we're here with Henry Torano, owner of OPEX San Juan and remote coach with the Big Dawgs team. Good to have you, Henry.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something way more than that. He prepared, and then he just said, good to be here. It's good to have you.
So it is indeed. We have a question for you. And that question is, what are 3 ways that a gym owner can shape the culture of their community?
As you think about that, let's give context.
To who Henry is?
No. I think people know who he is by now, but why are we asking him this question?
Good point.
Yeah, so Henry went through a pretty significant brand shift about a year and a half ago. Went from aggressive fitness PR.com, no longer exists, to OPEX San Juan.
Actually 2 years ago now.
2 years ago.
It's been a while. COVID kind of made us lose track of time.
Yeah. So did that, obviously, and I would just imagine culture is a little bit different, right? With a gym called Aggressive Fitness, and then going to, licensing and becoming an OPEX gym and talking about the things that you guys are talking about now versus what you used to talk about when you were aggressive. And you've done a good job keeping a good culture, or shaping the culture that you want in your gym. So contextually, that's why we're asking you this question.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting because, there obviously has been a culture shift inside the gym, not so much in our approach or what we believed in. We've been, trying to, I don't want to say push, but we've really wanted to be behind the ID model since 2013. That's the first time when I knew what I wanted to have an ID gym, a gym that specialized in ID. At the time, most of the people that were coming in were mostly competitors, pretty much because that was what we were doing. It was that's what we were, putting out there. It's what people could feel was our passion, and we definitely had success within the island and at regionals level and whatnot. The name of the company obviously reflected that, and the marketing that we put out there reflected that. And as more competitors started coming to work with us, then that was the big thing, right? We still had the Gen Pop clients, but they looked up to the competitors. They were the stronger ones, they were the fast ones, they were the ones that had the gymnastics and whatnot. So there definitely was some aspiration to become some of that. Eventually, that started becoming a problem when, as a business owner, I realized that it was going to be very tough to be able to bring in the amount of clients that I wanted, only on or for competition, because there's not that many competitors. A lot of the better competitors they basically came in to ask to get sponsored. A lot of them would be in it for a couple years and either do what they wanted to do or not be able to do what they wanted to do and then just leave. So it was definitely not the client that we wanted, even though it was something that appealed to me personally and a number of the coaches. But we always kind of believed in and communicated that what made our gym special was that we were like-minded individuals, and that everybody who was in there would be working towards their goals. And that was the energy that one would feed off of everyone else, regardless of what they were doing in that particular workout or whatever their goals were. So like that has been in there for a good number of years, but definitely changing the name was a big factor. And it's not only the name, it's everything that went in it, right? It was very hard to market aggressive and neon green with, Susie, soccer mom, doing a step up. It just kind of didn't match. So that's what we were pushing. That was our image. And when we went through the rebrand, we also changed, the content that we were putting out there, and that completely changed the dynamic of, who we were reaching, who was calling. And I stopped hearing I want to go there, but I'm going to get in shape first, which was a big thing that I heard from prospects.
And with culture and the notion of shaping the community inside of your gym, that starts with the public messaging and the kinds of people that you're attracting.
I actually think it starts way before that. It starts, one, with the owner.
Yeah.
Actually believing in the product and, sticking to your guns when it comes to that. Like, you need to believe in what you're selling. Otherwise, you may be successful. People will know. People will know that you're just selling versus, he believes. And second, all of your staff has to be behind it. Like, they all need to believe. They all need to be convinced. And that definitely was, those 2 points were definitely met in our system. We had some coaches that didn't quite fit, and they got weeded out. The people that we have right now, again, believe in the message, and that transmits heavily to the clients.
So what are those? I know we're putting a lot of ideas in. Just like, what are those 3 points, Henry? But what are the top 3, 2, 3, 4, whatever comes to mind when it comes to advice that you would have for a coach that you're working with? That's like, hey, Henry, how the hell do I do this thing, man? Like, what do I need to think about when shaping the culture of my gym and my community? And you said a couple of them already, right?
So, when you asked the question, immediately I thought of that. The owner needs to believe. The owner needs to have or get the staff to believe and make sure that the team is solid in that regard. And, the message needs to be aligned with what you're marketing so that the right people are calling, so that the right people are in your gym, and it doesn't feel awkward or it doesn't feel useless to be working with these people as a coach, or awkward to everybody else in the gym to see people doing what they're doing. So if I had, when I have 3-4 drop-ins that all of a sudden come, they're on vacation and they're following Invictus or any template. I don't even know why I said Invictus, but they come in and they're all doing the same thing. Like, my members look weirdly. It's like, what the hell's going on? Like, why do they have 4 rowers and 4 barbells and they're doing the same thing, and it's a completely different dynamic. So that's a huge part of it. Make sure that everybody that's in there, again, is like-minded and everybody, gets the vibe.
How do you have that conversation with, I guess, number 1 clients and then number 2 coaches who don't get the vibe and aren't a good fit? They want to, but they just don't.
I have had with coaches, I think the last time I had this conversation with a coach was 3 years ago. And honestly, this particular person came in saying all the right things and saying that, but the intentions weren't there. He wanted to learn to do something else with it. So that didn't work out, and it was fine. With clients, I have the conversations as they walk in the door. I tell them, this is what we do, and I also take it a step further. This is what we don't do. No classes, no group. If you're doing what I'll be the qualifier and saying crazy shit, you got to go. We're just not in for that. And again, we've been in it for so long, and regardless of the name of the brand, the message has been pretty consistent that people already know, right? They know not to call, or even when I just reply to a lead via email, if that were the case, the way it's worded, if it's nowhere near the right person, they won't reply to it.
What do you do? It's kind of, I know we're going down this rabbit hole a little bit, but what do you do when you identify a client, right? So you said alignment from the owner to the coaches, now down to the clients. what do you do with a client that calls in? So let's say it's that lead that you're replying to via email, that it's extremely clear that there's no alignment there in terms of what their intentions are. Do you try to change that? Do you turn that client away? Do you take the consult? Like, what does that look like from an owner standpoint?
I try not to string it along any further. It usually turns out to be a waste of time. I mean, we can all agree that in this model, a client that leaves in the third month was not worth it. There's just too much work that goes into it in the front end. And yes, I have some younger coaches that are starting off, and if you ask them, they'll be like, "Damn, I'll take 3 months of it, forget it." But then they're complaining, and once they do it once or twice, they're like, "No, like I'm out. Let's make sure that we're, I don't want to take the clients that look a little, awkward or whatever you want to call it." Man, I tell people straight up, like, no, we don't do group, we don't do class, we do individualized training. Do you want to learn about that? If they say yes, I explain it. Depending on how the conversation goes, if it doesn't sound like they dig it at all, I'll say, look, this is not what you're looking for. It doesn't sound like you're going to be happy here. So, like, I'd recommend you look elsewhere. So
alignment's correct. That thing, right? My last question, I don't know if you have another one, Georgia. My last question is, what did you do when you made that shift, that brand shift? What did you do that you look back on now and you're like, shit, if I could do it all over again, I'd do that one or two things differently in messaging or conversations with your coaches or clients? What would that be as it relates to culture?
Man, I think we handle it pretty well. And I'd been thinking about how to do this for years. Everybody knew this was going to happen. Like, we were very open about it. Like, there's going to come a point when there will be no more class, and this is how it's going to roll. And when that time came about, I had more ID members than group training members. So everybody knew what it was, even if they didn't come for it, because they'd ask, like, what are they doing? And, like, how does that work? And they knew it existed, and they knew what our intentions were. I put together a pretty nicely written email as to why we were doing it, and, circling back to our history and when we started believing in this and why. And, we set like a 3-month process of when it was going to happen. The big issue, which I couldn't have changed because I didn't know, is that COVID, like, they lock us down 15 days before our last day of class. And I lost 15 days of contact with those people. I lost that last day when they were going to come in, and I'd be able to say, like, but try a 4-week trial. Mm-hmm. Like, no, it's like, well, you're not going to the gym anymore. And by the time we reopened, I lost, like, the 40 people that I still had that were kind of, that I thought I had a chance with at least 10 or 12 of them.
Yeah. Can't change that.
Nope.
No.
Cool. That's all I had. I don't know if you had any
Yeah.
other questions there, Georgia.
No, all good there. Thanks for sharing your experience there, Henry. And for those that are interested in coaching, mentorship, whatever it might be with you, we'll make sure we drop all the details for that in the description.
Yeah.
Anywhere you want people to go to check you out and follow you?
You can look me up on Instagram, Coach Torano.
All right. Thanks, Henry.
Thank you.
So we're here now with Sam Smith. Sam Smith, Big Dawgs coach, mentor of many coaches through OPEX, and I would say a consummate fitness professional.
Ooh, I see what you did there.
Is that it's a good way to describe this guy, right?
Yeah, it is.
He's going to be talking about professionalism.
He has a nice tapered tee for you guys that are listening.
Yes.
Go to YouTube because this tee is it's very nice. That's a nice T-shirt, man.
It is. I almost want to reach out and stroke you, but I think that might be inappropriate. It looks very soft, though.
Should we edit that out? Because
no.
Okay.
I think
cool.
it's okay.
Let's keep it. Yeah, we'll keep it.
Let's go with it.
Okay.
So, Sam, we really wanted to talk to you about professionalism as it relates to the fitness coach and more broadly as well. And we jotted down a question, which is, what are the top 3 characteristics of a professional? So, could you speak to that, please?
Before I start, do I need to center my chair? Because I feel like it's off
Yeah,
center.
you feel a little off. You're way back. You're way back. It's like you're gonna go through the wall. Yeah, scoot up a little bit. Get in here.
Yeah,
there we go.
We touch knees under the
nice.
table.
Yeah. If the knees aren't touching, you're out of position here.
Henry had a unique position. Well, when you asked me that question, the first word that came to mind was consistency, and then from consistency, I went to competent, and then from competent I was like, well, then I might as well say caring.
Where did those
So-
come from?
The triangle of trust.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. So I think those three terms are great words to describe what a consummate professional would be. And then of course in each of them parsing out what that means, because caring can connotate, softness or dependency, but that's as a professional, that's not what you're trying to cultivate. But there's a adequate amount of care to support the client wherever they're at, but it's required. It's just meeting them with the right amount. And then competency, refining your craft, better serving the client over time, and then consistency, showing up, doing your work, being consistent with your deliverables because you're a professional, and a professional has made a commitment to the consumer, and so you have to show up every day with that.
So let's say it was can't be a brand new coach that would check the box in all three of those, but let's say it's someone that's been coaching for 18 months, right? So you have a coach in front of you, they've been coaching for 18 months, they're doing this thing, they're coaching 4 hours a week all in, and they check the box on, competency, they have an extensive amount of knowledge, and they have a couple degrees, and they went through some coaching programs, and they're competent, right? Like you have a conversation, you're like, okay, that's solid, check it. Caring. In conversation, they're a very caring individual. You've spoken to a couple of their clients would say the same, like, yes, I have a great amount of trust in this person. It's obvious they care about me. And then when you look at the last piece, let's say that's checked as well. Is that person a professional coach because they check the box on all of those, on the 3 C's?
I feel calling yourself a professional is a subjective determiner. So it's you making the decision to call yourself a professional, and then with that comes responsibilities and requirements to uphold what that means. So I think having what you just said, if you check those boxes, I would say, yeah, they have the pieces in play to, let's say, be a professional, but being versus, I don't want to say being, but saying someone is something versus seeing them be it is very different. So I'm trying to make that seem coherent.
I skipped over consistency intentionally. I was like, yeah, they check it, but that's what I was getting at. It's like, is there an amount of time someone has to be consistent to call themselves a professional if they check all those boxes, right? Because remember, I just said, hey, someone's been doing this for 18 months, and they're only doing it 4 hours a week, right? So they might be doing this completely on the side, right? But they still check the 3 boxes in the 3 C's.
Yeah.
Would you say that person has to have an amount of consistency doing that thing? And do you think they'd have to log more hours to call themselves a professional? Or is it like, nope, all those things are checked, we're good to go? And I know we're having a super subjective conversation of just like challenging some ideas to kind of get in the brain of Sam right now.
If you say you're a professional, in my opinion, that means you're fully invested in the work. You're not half in. If you're half in, it's a hobby. It's not a professional. Professional, in my definition, is a very specific type of person, type of work, type of responsibility. So if you're doing 4 hours and that's in a week, that's not a professional in my definition. That's something, it's a hobby. So even though you have the 3 C's, if it's not all encompassing, then I wouldn't classify that person as professional. And to that point, they probably do need more time, but also they need to be investing more time in their week and their day to be building themselves towards the level of time and energy and work to, let's say, label themselves a professional, where they're all in this practice.
Yeah. I think to be a professional, it's something you just have to do it a lot. You have to have a lot of reps at whatever that thing is. So I think that's what, not most people. I don't think most people have like I don't think most people consider themselves one thing and they're not. But we're in a fairly guarded circle here. But yeah, I think people just need the reps, right? And that's kind of where my head went when you laid those three things out. It's like, where are the reps coming from?
It's not a knock on anyone though, right? Like what both of you are laying out there, the idea that to earn the title professional, you need time in the trenches, through years of experience, but also through the pursuit of doing it full time and making it like your true career. That isn't to say that someone can't get great results for their clients, be an excellent coach, and be doing it for 4 hours throughout the week. That's not a bad thing. There's nothing like good or bad about either of those, but it is the idea that if we're going to use this title of professional and elevate coaching to be a true profession, there does have to be this like pinnacle that we're working towards as to what it actually means. I hope I didn't just like put my hand in front of your face, Sam, and block the camera. But no, you're working towards something that has to be earned through putting in time, and you can't just like slap that title on yourself.
When did you hit that spot, Sam, where you're like, fuck, now this is my profession. This is what I do. I'm a fitness professional. When did you hit that?
Let's see, it's 2021. So I would say probably the end of 2018, start of 2019, I felt a lot more confident in my work and what I was doing, and that I had value and some validity behind my ideas and how I do my work. So it probably took me, a good 6 years to get to a point where I was fairly confident in feeling as though I was a professional, to let's say the similar degree I felt with my previous life in golf, and where I left that on a professional level. Like what did that entail, and what did that feel like? I would say a couple of years ago I got to that place where I was like, okay, now I'm at this similar level in experience and energy and intention in what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's such a mindset, right? Like if you don't believe it, you're not it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Especially and we said like, this is so subjective, and it's tough because in a lot of other things it's not subjective to say I'm a professional at this thing, right? Let's take like sports, right? It's like I'm not an amateur. I'm getting paid to do this thing. I'm a professional. I don't give a shit what you think, right? Like we can't go to like an NFL player and say you're not a professional football player. They'll show you their paycheck and be like, yes, I am. Or like a doctor, right? It's like I finished medical school and now I'm working for a practice, or I have my own practice. I'm a medical professional, right? But in coaching, it gets a little weird, right? It gets a little weird. And quite frankly, it is subjective. It's like we have our definition of what a professional fitness coach is, and there's probably 50 other groups out there that have a different definition and don't agree with ours. So because it's subjective, I think that the person, the coach, has to believe that they're a professional. I think that's step number one. Obviously, a lot of experience and checking the box on the things that you laid out has to happen first before that coach is in a spot where they can be confident that they're a professional. But I think that's step one.
I was going to add to that the starting point is always making the decision to turn pro. A preview of my talk at the Coaches Summit, but that's the starting point. Is you have to make a conscious decision that this is what I want to do, and even though right now I'm only working 4 hours a week doing it, I'm laying out the intention so that in 5 years I'm going to be in this role that is like a real fitness professional, where you're a consummate professional. So it does start with the intention being set that I'm not going to treat this as a hobby, even though right now I don't have a workload or a book of business that would reflect, let's say, a professional. Again, that's subjective. But the intention is always the starting point.
I have a question for you, Sam, and it comes from, you mentioned 2018 was when you really started feeling confident in your ability. So for the coach that currently feels a lack of confidence in their ability, their professionalism, whatever it might be, do you have any advice of like tangible things they can do to feel more confident?
Yeah. I think part of it too was the ecosystem I was in, because I'm around so many great coaches that, a lot of it is, well, am I staying on par with these guys and girls in our team? So that took a few years to like believe that, okay, I can hang with these guys. I'm not, like this weak link or anything. So if you're your own coach in your own gym in your own community, then you might already feel pretty competent in your.
There's always someone to compare yourself against, especially
Always.
with social media, though, right?
Yes. So to your point, because you are correct, I always, with my own clients, I always go back to, comparison's the thief of joy, and remembering that you can only compare yourself to who you were yesterday, who you were 5 years ago, etc. So trying to really anchor yourself when you do compare to where you were a year ago or 2 years ago with relationships, knowledge base, client success, retention, all of the variables. I mean, you can lay out 50 variables and then do a checklist of, well, where am I? Am I moving forward? And then that can be really reinforcing that, okay, I'm getting better, I'm getting more competent, and then that can, build the confidence that you need to then give off to your clients, because your clients lean on you a lot for that confidence and competency. So that's, I think, something that could be of value for the younger coach in building that self-confidence and knowing that they're moving in the right direction through some objective, feedback and looking at everything. Because I think that was helpful for me, is just seeing, okay, how are my clients doing? We moving forward? That's why we, assess, don't guess. Why we take data points and we track. We don't just, throw shit on the wall and see what sticks. So that's how I would, and that's what I continually do, is I'm always, trying to test, retest, just to make sure I'm, moving things in the right direction with people.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your insight, Sam. And we're very much looking forward to your Speak on Professionalism this upcoming Saturday.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. So we have Whitney here. How are you, Whitney?
I'm good.
Awesome. Yeah, you are the woman of many hats.
Yes.
So we wanted to dig into, because this is something that we get asked a lot, right? Like pretty often, Georgia. It's like, what's that transition into coaching look like? I'm doing this thing and I'm not quite, I haven't quite landed on what I want to do, for the rest of my life. And Georgia and I were chatting about you, and we're like, let's talk to her about wearing different hats, having this coaching passion and balancing other things that you're doing. And I wouldn't say that you're definitely not coaching part-time, and you're definitely not doing those other things part-time. So we just wanted to ask you, what are 3 pieces of advice for someone balancing coaching with another passion?
And before you answer that, what are some of the hats that you wear, just for people who may not already be aware?
Ooh, that's a good clarification.
Yeah. Quick laundry list of
she'll miss one or two
gonna
too,
miss something,
and I'll throw it in there.
So
throughout your entire coaching career, what have you also done? Like full time.
So part of that is teaching at a physical therapy residential program. So I teach 3 of 4 musculoskeletal courses and biomechanics. I teach a clinical reasoning class for physical therapists. So that's all I could say. That's one hat. That's university.
Mm-hmm.
Another hat is being a physical therapy clinician. I would call that one technically a full hat, even though I don't see a full caseload in a given week. I'm kind of phasing out of that. Another hat would be teaching residents that are physical therapists, either in sports or orthopedics. So in clinic with them, seeing their patients with them, and kind of guiding them through advanced practice. Another hat's coaching, which definitely is not part-time. I'm missing something somewhere in there, probably.
Well, you were a very competitive athlete.
Yes.
And multiple sports.
Yes.
While you coach still.
Yes. At that point, I was coaching on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I was treating full-time. I was still doing residency, university, and competing. So, yeah, that was a lot of hats.
So how do you balance that? What's your advice for someone that is very passionate about coaching, but they're also passionate about this other thing?
I think one thing is not looking at any of those as a side hustle. I think if you start to look at the things you're doing from the perspective of I have my main thing and then I have a side hustle, is you start getting confused about why you're doing what you're doing, and dedicating focus and energy and time gets pushed aside if it's like, oh, it's just a side hustle. So when you look at them that way, side hustles come and go, the main thing stays. So if you're trying to balance multiple hats because they really are all truly important to you, being clear about why you're doing multiple things would be the second thing. So despite all of the various hats that I wear, there's a constant theme within that that's always the same. And the theme is always along an education journey. So at any point with any of those, if I get to a point that it seems like that journey has become confused or not aligned with that main thing, I'm willing to take that hat off. The third thing is being really clear within how you dedicate your mental energy and your time. So I keep things very compartmentalized within each of those hats. Like university, I do that on a specific day. Residency, teaching for physical therapists, I do that at very specific times on very specific days. Coaching in consults, that's at very specific days and times. My programming for my clients, that's at very specific times. So I keep myself able to say I'm going to take one hat off entirely and not go back to that. So staying within a task and being very dedicated with your energy and time in that task lets you switch back and forth. If in the moment you try switching back and forth, you end up being completely unproductive.
What about the elements of coaching, like the commenting on clients' workouts, that daily communication, client messages you with a question? How do you stay on top of that while you've got a bunch of other things going on and time dedicated to, being in the clinic or being at the university?
So I'm pretty heavily driven by my phone. I let all my clients know a day of in the moment question, the best way to communicate with me. So, that's generally in rehab, that's called a clear agreement and clear contract. So I try to set that on the front end of the best ways to get a hold of me are the following. In the moment, this medium is the best way to do that. If it's an end of the day comment, you're not expecting me to reply until the next day, I let them know where to put that so that I can see it. And then if I'm unsure on something, I'll just send someone a message right away. Hey, I'm unsure on this. I like getting clarifications. So making myself available doesn't mean being available 24 hours a day, though. I also do when I'm talking to people in consult or in the message feature or an email, say, here's the days and times I'm available for a live chat. Here's the times that I'm doing admin, I'm at my computer. Here's the times I know I'm going to be offline. And I keep that a very consistent rhythm, partially for myself, but also now I've kind of set the expectation. If you message me on the weekend, either that means it's urgent, or we both know I'm not going to get to it till my next computer time, which is going to be very specific times on Saturdays and very specific times on Sundays.
So just really clear expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something interesting about the side hustle and how you're looking at the things that you're doing, and don't look at those as side hustles. Almost look at everything as just like a segmented main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you learn that from? Did you ever find yourself in a position where you did look at something as a side hustle and that thing went by the wayside, or was that knowledge and that thought just kind of always there naturally?
I wouldn't say it was always there naturally. I think probably the first 5 years of dabbling in so many things. So at this point, that's been a while ago. I think I thought of coaching as like, I really enjoy this, and it's kind of a side hustle. And then at that point in time, that's when I started doing some fellowship training. And part of that is a lot of mentoring about why you're doing what you're doing and really aligning yourself and your values and goals so that then when you're working with someone else, you can do the same thing, which is very similar to what we do in lifestyle coaching. And so with going through that at that point in time, I realized I'm doing this because it aligns with everything I'm passionate about and I'm fulfilled by doing this, not doing this creates a void that I'm going to go back and kind of seek to fill anyway. So that helped me understand when someone then says, okay, you're teaching these classes, you're doing these things in clinic, you're doing things outside of the clinic, you're also coaching. Why do you keep doing all these things if you don't have to? And my answer is always because I can't imagine not doing all of them at some point. I'm fulfilled by that entire spread of things that I'm doing.
Because those things have such great synergy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be a different story if you're like, yeah, I'm an attorney, right, for 60 hours a week, and I also coach, but I do that full time. Like, I think that would be difficult because those two things, maybe in conversation and consultation, they could have some synergies, but they're so different where it's like, you know, what you're doing with, you know, education and practicing and all of that, everything's all about, you know, the person, right? Everything's all about the person, and there's like physical expression involved in this. So those things can make you better at each one of the other things. So what are your thoughts on, this will be my last thing, what are your thoughts on someone that is doing something that has no synergies with coaching? Do you think that they can create the success and the flow that you've been able to?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
I know I'm asking you to like take a stand here, but yeah, I think that's, you know, I think we might have some people listening that are like, yeah, that's all great, Whitney, but what you do, all those different things, there's some connection between those things, and that wasn't by accident. You didn't fall into doing a bunch of things that have such great synergies. But there might be someone listening that's like, oh man, I am an attorney, and I also love coaching. What can I do to balance those things?
I think if you really understand why you want to coach, they will naturally have something that's similar. So maybe you are an attorney because you have this desire to really help someone through something they're going through, which is a very linear and regimented approach when you look at law. Maybe coaching in a very linear way aligns with that mindset. Then they could be perfect synergies.
Mm-hmm.
If it's, I'm doing it because I love communicating with people, face-to-face, that would work great. In a different environment, it might not work as well, because if the connection that connects both activities is communication, you're going to find if you have trouble communicating with people in a coaching environment, it's going to fall off the wayside if that's the only thing you're aligning to.
I think that's such a great point. I speak with a lot of CCP candidates, and we get a huge number of engineers that apply and go through CCP. And I think it's that like logical brain where we've got this grand like master plan, and we're going to like reverse engineer back and like put all the pieces in that like the engineer's brain does a really good job at. So I think that's a really interesting way to think of it. Like there's always a connection if you're pursuing that passion.
Mm-hmm. They have to tie to each other in some way if you're going to do more than one thing and truly do it.
Yep. Or you're going to be resentful to one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we see, you know, if it is a side hustle, to your point, and that's your mindset. You're just like, I'm kind of just doing this thing on the side. When that thing gets hard or difficult or inconvenient, you're probably going to have a certain level of resentment to that thing, and that thing might be coaching, because you're like, in my brain, this thing is a side hustle. I don't need it. I don't really want to do this. I'm just like hanging on to it. So I think that's when we see people doing multiple things, and not only in coaching, but in anything, and they're just like, fuck this, I'm never going to do this thing again. I think it's because a level of resentment was built because they might have, to your point, looked at it as a side hustle. Maybe.
Well, Whitney, we should probably let you get back to one of your many full-time hustles. So thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks.
Thanks, Whit.